Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and release the tension from your body. Feel yourself sinking deeper into comfort as your muscles relax, one by one. Tonight, we journey back through the mists of time to explore the quiet resilience of those who came before us. The present moment fades away as the medieval world begins to whisper its secrets. Let your breathing slow. Allow your mind to drift as we prepare to enter a world of stone hearths, woolen cloaks, and communities bound together by survival through the coldest days of winter. If you enjoy slow, sleepy history, tap the like button, subscribe for more nighttime journeys, and share this with someone who needs rest tonight. Tell us in the comments, where are you listening from? What time is it? We'd love to know. Close your eyes and let the old world drift softly into view. The ancient wisdom of survival through cold and scarcity awaits, ready to carry you gently into dreams. The medieval year turns slowly toward winter. In villages across Europe, peasants move with deliberate care as the days grow shorter. The sun hangs lower in the sky, its golden light stretching long shadows across fields recently harvested. The air carries a peculiar crispness, a gentle warning of the cold that will soon arrive. This is the gathering time, the season of preparation that determines survival through the harshest months. In a small village nestled between rolling hills and ancient forests, families work with quiet determination. Their homes, humble structures of timber, wattle, and daub, stand in scattered clusters. Thin tendrils of smoke rise from thatched roofs, dancing against the pale autumn sky. The smoke carries the gentle scent of burning oak and pine, a fragrance that will become constant as winter deepens. Women move between garden plots, harvesting the last of the root vegetables. Their fingers work methodically through the soil, carefully extracting turnips, carrots, and parsnips. These final treasures are lifted with reverence, brushed clean, and placed in woven baskets. Nothing is wasted. Even the smallest, most misshapen vegetables are collected, for winter allows no indulgence of discarding food. Children help by gathering fallen branches and twigs from the forest edge. Their small hands stack kindling into bundles tied with strips of cloth or thin, flexible branches. They sing softly as they work, old songs passed down through generations, songs about the turning of seasons and the endurance of life. Their breath forms small clouds in the increasingly chill air. The men are engaged in the final splitting of logs. The rhythmic sound of axes striking wood resonates through the settlement. Each log is split precisely, creating pieces that will fit properly in hearths and provide the most efficient heat. The wood piles grow steadily alongside each dwelling, carefully stacked monuments to preparation, each one representing hours of labor that began in spring, when trees were felled and continued through summer as wood seasoned. Inside the dwellings, shelves and storage areas fill gradually with preserved foods. Bundles of dried herbs hang from ceiling beams, rosemary, sage, thyme, their fragrances mingling in the dim interior. Onions and garlic are braided into long strands and suspended near the hearth where the rising heat will keep them dry. Nuts, gathered from forest floors, rest in clay pots sealed with beeswax. The medieval peasant's relationship with winter is not merely one of survival. It is an ancient dance of preparation, conservation, and community. Knowledge passed down through centuries guides every action. There is no rushing, no frantic activity. The work proceeds with the steady rhythm of necessity, each task connected to the next, in an unbroken chain of survival wisdom. As evening approaches, the community gathers near the central hearth. Steam rises from a large iron pot suspended above the flames. The evening meal is simple: a thick pottage of barley, dried peas, and the smaller vegetables deemed too imperfect for storage. Flavored with salt and herbs, it provides warming nourishment. After a day of physical labor, an elder speaks softly as people eat, reminding the younger ones of signs that suggest the coming winter's severity: the thickness of squirrel nests, the abundance of beech nuts, the early migration of certain birds. These are nature's messages, watched carefully and interpreted through generations of observation. This year, the signs point to a winter of particular harshness. The preservation of meat is underway as the first truly cold days arrive. The village has slaughtered only what can be thoroughly preserved, mostly pigs whose fat content makes them especially valuable for winter sustenance. Nothing is wasted. Blood is collected for puddings and sausages. Intestines become casings. Even the bladders find use as containers or coverings. Salting is the primary method of preservation. Women rub salt into cuts of meat with practiced hands, ensuring every surface receives the crystalline preservative. The most valuable salt is kept for this purpose, having been traded for at great expense or collected from rare inland salt springs. Meat destined for smoking is hung in the upper reaches of dwellings, where the smoke from daily cooking fires will gradually impart preservation and flavor. Some meat is preserved through confiting, a process of slow cooking in fat, then storing the meat beneath a protective layer of solidified fat that seals away air. This technique, though demanding of resources, creates stores of meat that remain edible for months without the intense saltiness of other preservation methods. The village smells of wood smoke, salt, herbs, and the sweet sour aroma of fermenting vegetables. Cabbage, turnips, and other sturdy produce are shredded and packed tightly into wooden barrels or earthenware crocks. The fermentation process will transform them into storable foods, rich in nutrients that help ward off winter ailments. The vessels are kept in the coolest corners of homes, or in root cellars dug beneath the dirt floors. Grain, the foundation of medieval sustenance, occupies particular attention. After the harvest, threshing, and winnowing the precious wheat, rye and barley are stored in raised granaries designed to protect against moisture and rodents. The lord of the manor has claimed his substantial portion as rent, leaving peasants to carefully ration what remains throughout the coming months. Ale brewing intensifies as winter approaches. The fermented drink provides not only comfort during cold months, but also vital calories and nutrients. Women stir steaming mixtures of malted grain in large wooden vats, adding carefully gathered herbs for flavor and preservation. The brewing process fills homes with a warm, yeasty fragrance that speaks of comfort to come. Children help by collecting clay and straw for supplemental sealing of homes. The mixture is pressed into gaps where wind might enter, around door frames, between wall timbers, near the base of walls where settling has created spaces. This humble material becomes a crucial barrier between family and freezing temperatures. As twilight gathers earlier each day, candle making becomes a priority. Tallow rendered from animal fat is carefully poured around hemp or rush wicks. The resulting candles are crude compared to the beeswax ones used in churches and noble homes, but they will provide essential illumination during the long winter nights. The flicker of these simple lights will be a comfort in the darkness to come. The gathering of additional bedding materials happens with particular care. Fresh straw is collected for mattress stuffing. Every available scrap of wool, even combings, from sheep that caught on brambles in the spring, is gathered for spinning. Extra layers between body and cold can mean the difference between comfort and suffering, or even survival. Clothing preparation takes on special significance. Woolen garments are mended with careful stitches. Holes are darned, seams reinforced. New garments are fashioned from fabric woven throughout the year. Simple tunics, leggings, and hoods designed to preserve body heat. The wealthier peasants might possess garments lined with fur or extra layers of wool. The poorest rely on multiple layers of linen and simple wool, often inherited and mended over many seasons. Footwear receives particular attention. Leather boots and shoes are treated with mixtures of animal fat and beeswax to increase water resistance. Additional insulation is created from moss, straw, and wool scraps that can be stuffed inside. Some craft simple wooden patterns, ancestors of clogs, that elevate feet above the cold ground and potentially snow. The community aspect of preparation cannot be overstated. No single family could possess all the skills and resources needed for winter survival. The medieval village functions as an interdependent web. Those with particular skills in herbal knowledge share remedies for winter coughs. Others with woodworking ability help repair tools and homes. The village smith repairs metal implements essential for winter tasks. As true cold begins to settle across the land, the pace of preparation intensifies without becoming hurried. The final gleaning of fields ensures no edible wild plants or fallen grain remains uncollected. Even in this late season, certain mushrooms emerge in the forests. Those known to be safe are carefully harvested and dried on strings near hearths. Water sources are assessed and prepared. Some villages are fortunate to have wells within their boundaries. Others rely on streams or rivers. Paths to these water sources are cleared and marked with stakes that will remain visible even if snow covers the ground. Alternative water sources are identified for times when primary sources might freeze. Livestock preparations involve creating sheltered areas where animals can weather the coldest nights. Though medieval peasants rarely had separate barns, many shared their dwellings with especially valuable animals during extreme weather. The body heat of cows, goats, or pigs could provide significant warming to the human inhabitants, while the humans' fire provided protection for the animals. The most vulnerable members of the community, the elderly, the ill, very young children, become the focus of specific preparations. Their sleeping spaces are arranged nearest to hearths. Extra bedding is allocated to them. Foods especially suited to their needs are set aside. The medieval understanding of community survival recognized that protecting the most vulnerable protected everyone. As the final days before deep winter pass, there is a quiet ceremony in the village. It is not elaborate or formalized, but it carries deep significance. The community gathers to share a meal that is slightly more abundant than usual. Stories are told, tales of winters past, of hardships survived, of unexpected joys found in the darkness and cold. These narratives serve not merely as entertainment, but as reminders of resilience, as teaching tools, as connections to ancestral wisdom. The village priest offers prayers for protection during the coming months. Though Christianity has taken firm hold across medieval Europe, older beliefs about winter's spiritual significance linger in many customs. Some households still place small offerings at thresholds or in fields, ancient gestures toward forces not fully understood but deeply respected. As night falls, the village grows quiet. Families retreat to their homes, banking fires carefully to maintain embers until morning. The practice of fire preservation is essential. Rekindling flames from nothing requires precious tinder and significant effort. A properly banked fire can smolder through the night, ready to be brought back to useful flame with the addition of kindling in the morning. Inside the humble dwellings, families settle onto straw mattresses covered with woolen blankets. They arrange themselves for maximum warmth. Children nestled between adults, the elderly given places where drafts are least likely to reach. The air inside grows still, filled only with the sound of breathing and the occasional pop from the dying fire. Outside, the first true winter stars appear, brilliant and sharp in the crystal clear cold air. The medieval night is profoundly dark, unmarred by artificial light. The stars and moon cast the only illumination across the landscape, creating a world of deep shadows and silver highlights. Frost begins to form on exposed surfaces, tiny crystals, catching and reflecting the starlight. The village has done all it can to prepare. Knowledge accumulated across centuries has been applied with care and diligence. Stores are laid in, homes secured against cold, community bonds reinforced. Now comes the time of endurance, of careful conservation, of finding warmth and light in the darkest season. For the medieval peasant, winter is not merely something to be survived. It is a season with its own purpose in the great cycle of existence. It is a time of rest after harvest labours, of stories shared in firelight, of skills practiced indoors when fields lie fallow. The harsh reality of cold and potential hunger is balanced by the closeness of family and community, by the deep satisfaction of relying on preparations well made. As sleep claims the village, there is an acceptance of winter's inevitability and a quiet confidence born of preparation. The turning of seasons has been acknowledged and respected. The ancient dialogue between humans and winter continues as it has for countless generations. A dialogue of preparation, respect, endurance, and the quiet hope for spring's eventual return. The first snowflakes begin to fall, drifting through the night air like tiny fragments of stars. They settle on thatched roofs, on wood piles, on the bare earth of the village paths. By morning, the world will be transformed, muffled, brightened, challenged. But for now, there is only the gentle descent of snow and the deep rest of those who have done all they can to ready themselves for winter's embrace. As the snow continues to fall gently outside, we drift deeper into our journey through medieval winter. The preparations have been made, and now we turn to the intimate space of the peasant dwelling, where warmth and survival merge in a delicate balance. Morning arrives with muted light filtering through the small openings that serve as windows in the medieval peasant home. These apertures, sometimes covered with oiled parchment, more often with wooden shutters or simply cloth, allow minimal illumination while preserving precious heat. A family stirs beneath layers of woolen blankets and furs, reluctant to leave the shared warmth of the sleeping platform. The interior space is dark, filled with the lingering scent of last night's fire, a mixture of wood smoke, cooking aromas, and the earthiness of the dwelling itself. The air hangs still and cool, though significantly warmer than the winter landscape outside. Frost patterns have formed on the inside of shutters, delicate crystalline structures that catch the first light. The medieval peasant dwelling is a study in practical simplicity. Its dimensions are modest, perhaps 20 feet by 15 for a typical family home. The structure rises from packed earth floors to low walls of wattle and daub, topped by a steeply pitched roof of thatch. This steep angle is deliberate, allowing snow to slide off rather than accumulate and strain the structure. The father of the household is first to rise, moving carefully in the dim light. He reaches the central hearth, the literal and metaphorical heart of the medieval home. Here embers still glow faintly beneath a covering of ash, carefully banked the night before to preserve this precious spark. With practiced movements, he adds small kindling, dried moss, thin shavings of wood, the driest of twigs. He blows gently, coaxing the embers to ignite the new fuel. As flames begin to lick upward, other family members stir. The interior gradually reveals itself in the growing firelight. The single-room dwelling serves all purposes of life: cooking, eating, working, socializing, sleeping. Space is organized not by walls but by purpose, with different areas dedicated to different functions. The sleeping platform occupies one end of the room, a raised area filled with straw mattresses. During daylight hours, the bedding will be rolled and stored, transforming the space for other uses. Near the platform stand several wooden chests containing the family's most valuable possessions: extra clothing, perhaps a precious metal utensil, documents relating to land tenure, a small religious icon. The woman of the house joins her husband at the hearth, adding slightly larger pieces of wood as the fire establishes itself. The hearth structure is simple but efficient: a ring of stones on the earthen floor with a smoke hood above that directs most of the smoke toward an opening in the roof. This system is imperfect. Some smoke lingers in the upper portion of the room, gradually escaping through the thatch itself or through a dedicated smoke hole. This smoky atmosphere serves multiple purposes beyond cooking and heating. It helps preserve the thatch from the inside, making it resistant to insects and rot. The gentle antiseptic quality of wood smoke helps preserve food hanging from the rafters, and even provides some protection against certain airborne illnesses. The medieval family accepts the irritation of smoke as a necessary companion to warmth and preservation. Children emerge from the bedding, wrapping themselves in extra layers of clothing before approaching the growing fire. Their breath creates small clouds in the cool morning air. Winter mornings in the medieval home begin with this gathering around fire, a daily ritual of renewal and warmth that forms the foundation of survival through the cold months. The architectural wisdom embedded in the peasant dwelling reveals itself most clearly in winter. The thick walls, usually a foot or more of wattle and daub, a mixture of woven branches covered with clay, straw, and sometimes animal dung, provide significant insulation. Unlike stone, which conducts cold, these earthen walls create a buffer against exterior temperatures. The low ceiling height is deliberate, keeping the warmed air closer to the inhabitants rather than allowing it to rise beyond reach. Many dwellings feature a partial loft where older children might sleep or where certain stores are kept. This space captures rising heat while providing additional storage or living area. Windows are few and small, recognizing that while light is desirable, heat preservation takes precedence in winter. Some homes feature shutters that can be closed completely during the harshest weather or opened partially when conditions allow. The door, typically facing away from prevailing winds, is sturdy and fits snugly in its frame, often supplemented with hanging cloth or skins to further block drafts. The first activity of the day centers on food preparation. Water, perhaps melted from snow or brought in from a protected spring, is set to heat in a clay or iron pot suspended above the fire. Into this will go dried grains, often barley or rye, forming the foundation of the morning pottage. The meal will be simple but warming, grain cooked until soft, perhaps enriched with a small amount of preserved fat, flavored with salt and dried herbs. While the morning meal cooks, other essential tasks begin. The home must be checked for any damage or vulnerabilities created by overnight weather. Any snow that has accumulated too heavily on the thatch must be carefully removed to prevent structural strain. Water sources must be assessed. determining whether ice needs to be broken on wells or streams, or if new snow needs to be collected for melting. Inside, daily winter maintenance continues. The earthen floor receives attention, smoothed where traffic has created unevenness, perhaps sprinkled with fresh rushes or herbs if available. These floor coverings serve multiple purposes: absorbing moisture, providing minimal insulation underfoot, and releasing pleasant aromas when crushed by walking. The family eats their morning meal from wooden bowls while seated on simple stools or benches near the fire. The ritual of food is unhurried, providing not just nourishment, but an opportunity for the family unit to solidify before the day's work begins. Plans are discussed in soft voices, which tasks must be prioritized, how to address any new challenges presented by the weather, who will undertake which responsibilities. After the meal, the dwelling transforms into a workspace. With outdoor agricultural labor largely suspended during winter, the home becomes the center of productive activity. Near the fire, where light is best, detailed tasks are performed. Women spin wool or flax into thread using drop spindles, simple tools that allow for the creation of thread and yarn even in confined spaces. The rhythmic motion of spinning is almost meditative, a steady, productive activity that can continue through daylight hours. Men work on tool repair and crafting, whittling, new handles for implements, mending baskets, fashioning simple furniture or household items. These tasks occur in a zone slightly removed from the fire's immediate heat, where larger movements are possible without endangering the flame or other workers. Children assist according to their abilities, learning through participation. They card wool before it can be spun, help monitor the fire, practice simple carving or fiber work under supervision. The winter months serve as an intensive educational period when skills are transmitted within the confines of the dwelling. The family's livestock, typically a few chickens, perhaps a goat or pig, may share the dwelling during extreme cold. Animals are often kept in a separate section of the home, sometimes divided by a low wall or simply designated by custom. Their body heat contributes to warming the space, while their presence allows for easy care during harsh weather. The practical benefits outweigh the challenges of shared space. By midday, the interior has reached its peak warmth. The constant presence of the fire, the body heat of the inhabitants, the insulating properties of the structure itself combine to create a microclimate that, while far from luxurious by modern standards, provides sufficient protection against the winter outside. The temperature might reach 50-60 degrees Fahrenheit near the fire, cooler in the periphery of the room. The midday meal resembles breakfast, perhaps the same pottage, reheated and possibly enhanced with a few more ingredients. If available, root vegetables might be added, or small amounts of preserved meat if the family is fortunate. Bread, if flour supplies allow, provides substantial sustenance. During this meal, the family might rotate positions, allowing those who have been working farthest from the fire to warm themselves. After the brief respite of the midday meal, work continues. The afternoon often includes tasks that require leaving the shelter, collecting additional firewood from nearby stores, checking animal shelters, clearing paths between essential areas of the homestead, potentially visiting neighbors if necessary. These outdoor excursions are planned carefully, minimizing time exposed to the elements. When family members return from outside, they undergo a careful transition. Snow is brushed from clothing before entering, as moisture inside the dwelling is to be avoided whenever possible. Wet outer garments are hung near the fire to dry, a critical practice as damp clothing can be dangerous in winter conditions and dry clothing is a precious resource. As daylight begins to wane, Early in the winter afternoon, the home enters perhaps its most important phase. The evening fire is built up more substantially than during the day, preparing for the coming night. This is not wasteful extravagance, but calculated necessity. The evening hours must provide enough heat to warm the dwelling sufficiently that some warmth remains through the sleeping hours. The evening meal is often the most substantial of the day. Drawing on preserved stores with careful calculation, the winter stores are mentally divided to last until spring, each day's usage precisely measured against remaining supplies and days of winter ahead. This meal might include more vegetables, perhaps more protein if available, and is typically served as a thick soup or stew that maximizes both nutrition and warming properties. As darkness settles fully outside, the medieval home transforms into a place of focused indoor activity, illuminated by firelight and perhaps a precious candle or rushlight. This illumination is carefully managed, positioned to provide maximum benefit from minimal resources. A single candle might be used only for specific tasks, requiring careful vision, while the fire provides general illumination. The evening is a time for productivity that transitions to community and rest. Initial hours might be spent completing work tasks, finishing items begun during daylight, preparing materials for the next day's work. Women continue spinning or begin weaving on small looms. Men complete carving or repair work. The oldest family members might prepare materials for basket making or other crafts suitable to aging hands. As the evening progresses, the focus shifts to activities that strengthen family and community bonds. This is the time for storytelling. Narratives, passed through generations, recounting ancestral history, explaining natural phenomena through folk wisdom, or simply entertaining. These stories serve multiple purposes: education, preservation of cultural heritage, and creating a sense of continuity and belonging that sustains through difficult times. If the family possesses instruments, perhaps a simple flute, drum, or stringed instrument, music might fill the dwelling. Songs mark the rhythm of the year, celebrate past harvests, or simply provide the comfort of familiar melodies. The practical medieval mind recognizes that morale is as essential to winter, survival as physical preparation. In many homes, this is also a time for religious observance. Prayers might be said, simple devotions observed. The Christian calendar provides structure to the winter months through feast days and fasts, while older folk traditions still inform many practices. These spiritual practices offer both psychological comfort and community cohesion. As the evening deepens, preparations for sleep begin. The fire is carefully banked, not extinguished but reduced and covered in a way that preserves embers until morning. This technique, perfected over generations, allows for the conservation of both heat and the precious resource of fire itself. The proper banking of a fire is one of the most essential winter skills, taught from parent to child with great care. Sleeping arrangements in the medieval peasant home reflect the primary winter imperative of preserving body heat. Family members sleep close together on the raised platform, sharing blankets and furs. The youngest children typically sleep between adults for maximum warmth and protection. Additional layers, cloaks, day clothing, extra fabric might be laid over the sleeping family on the coldest nights. Before final sleep, there is often a moment of quiet assessment, a mental inventory of the day's accomplishments and the next day's needs. The medieval peasant lives in a constant awareness of resources, weather, and time. This nightly reckoning is not anxiety, but preparation, a practiced mindfulness regarding the elements of survival. During the night, certain members of the family might rise to check the fire or address other needs. This responsibility often falls to the parents or eldest family members, who stir in the darkest hours to add small amounts of fuel to the embers, ensuring the dwelling never falls to truly dangerous temperatures. This vigilance, even during what should be rest, characterizes the constant attention required for winter survival. The medieval home at night becomes a self-contained world, a bubble of relative warmth and safety in the frozen landscape. The sounds are minimal. The occasional pop of the fire, the deep breathing of sleepers, perhaps the rustle of animals if they share the dwelling. Outside, winter creates its own soundscape. The creak of trees in the cold, the distant howl of wind, the muffled silence that follows snowfall. Through the night hours, the dwelling gradually cools. The temperature differential between inside and outside remains significant, perhaps 30 degrees Fahrenheit higher inside than out, but the interior temperature will drop noticeably from evening to dawn. This cooling is expected and prepared for through additional bedding and shared body heat. In the darkest hours before dawn, the dwelling reaches its coldest point. Breath forms visible clouds even indoors. Any water left in containers develops a thin crust of ice. The fire has burned to its lowest ebb. Just enough embers remain to be revived in the morning. This is the most vulnerable time, when the cold presses most insistently against the barriers of human creation. Yet even in this coldest moment, the medieval dwelling performs its essential function. The sleepers remain sufficiently warm beneath their layers. The structure continues to block wind and moisture. The banked fire preserves the possibility of quick revival. The home, humble though it is, stands as testament to generations of accumulated wisdom about surviving winter. As first light begins to filter through shutters or smoke holes, the cycle prepares to begin again. The father stirs, moves to the hearth, begins the careful process of rebuilding fire from embers. The medieval day awakens not to clocks or alarms, but to the rhythm of light and the necessities of warmth. This daily cycle continues through the winter months with slight variations. On particularly harsh days, activities might be reduced to only the most essential. During milder periods, more time might be spent outdoors or visiting neighboring dwellings. Religious feast days bring special foods from carefully preserved stores and perhaps communal gatherings. The dwelling itself is not static throughout winter. Small repairs are made as needed. Patches to the door where it has cracked, adjustments to thatch that has shifted, reinforcement of door frames or shutters that show weakness. The medieval home is in constant dialogue with its inhabitants, requiring attention and care in exchange for protection. Particular challenges arise during thaws, those deceptive warm days that sometimes interrupt the winter cold. Melting snow and ice can create water damage to earthen walls or thatch. Sudden freezing after a thaw can split wood or crack clay. The awareness of these dangers keeps the medieval household vigilant even during seemingly favorable weather changes. Through all these cycles, daily, weekly, the longer arc of winter itself, the medieval peasant dwelling serves as both practical shelter and embodiment of cultural knowledge. Each feature of its construction, each practice within its walls, represents solutions discovered, tested, and refined over centuries of human experience with winter survival. The low, dark, smoky interior that might seem primitive by modern standards is in fact a sophisticated response to environmental challenges given available materials and technology. The peasant home is a technology of survival, not merely a structure, but a system of practices, arrangements, and knowledge that together create a viable human environment in the most challenging season. As winter progresses, the dwelling accumulates, the evidence of human life, soot on rafters, worn paths on earthen floors, the patina of touch on wooden surfaces, the layered sense of cooking and bodies and smoke. These elements, rather than detracting from the space, embed it more deeply in the human experience. The medieval home wears its use visibly, becoming more intimately connected to its inhabitants through shared winter endurance. And so the cycle continues, day after day, as winter slowly moves through its phases. The peasant dwelling stands as a humble yet effective bulwark against the season's hardships, not eliminating cold or hunger or darkness, but moderating them sufficiently for human life to continue. In this moderation, this creation of enough from limited resources, lies the profound achievement of medieval winter survival. As the embers glow softly in the hearth of our medieval dwelling, our journey continues into the subtle art of nourishment during the barren months, the careful dance of preservation and preparation that sustained life when fields lay frozen beneath snow. Morning light filters through the smoke hole of a medieval cottage as a woman reaches into a clay storage vessel. Her movements are deliberate, almost ritualistic. She extracts precisely measured portions of dried beans, a careful calculation that balances immediate need against the remaining weeks of winter. These beans, harvested in late summer and dried through autumn, represent one of the most important protein sources that will sustain her family until spring brings fresh food once again. The medieval winter diet emerges from months of preparation and preservation, a carefully orchestrated system developed over centuries to transform autumn's abundance into sustenance for the barren months. The practices surrounding winter food are not merely about survival. They embody a profound understanding of natural cycles, preservation chemistry, and resource management that modern observers might find surprisingly sophisticated. In the corner of the cottage stands a wooden barrel. Its contents, finely shredded cabbage fermented with salt, provide one of winter's most valuable foods. What modern people would recognize as sauerkraut offers not just sustenance, but crucial vitamin C during months when fresh produce is unavailable. The fermentation process, understood through empirical knowledge rather than scientific terminology, transforms ordinary vegetables into long-lasting nutritional treasures. The process had begun months earlier, when cabbage heads were harvested, just before the first frost. Women gathered to shred the vegetables finely using iron knives. The shredded cabbage was layered with salt in wooden barrels or earthenware crocks, then weighted with clean stones to draw out liquid. The resulting brine created an anaerobic environment where beneficial bacteria could thrive while harmful ones were suppressed. No modern understanding of lactobacillus was needed. Only the accumulated wisdom of generations who observed that food prepared this way remained edible and healthful through winter. Similar fermentation practices preserved turnips, carrots, and other hardy vegetables. Each had slightly different preparation methods, timing and salt quantities, details transmitted through demonstration and practice rather than written recipes. The resulting preserved vegetables provided not just calories, but crucial micronutrients that helped prevent the numerous deficiency diseases that might otherwise plague winter communities. Hanging from the cottage rafters are bundles of dried herbs, rosemary, sage, thyme, and others gathered from garden plots and wild places during summer and fall. These plants serve multiple purposes in the winter kitchen. They provide essential flavoring for otherwise bland stored foods, offer medicinal properties for common winter ailments, and in some cases contribute small but meaningful nutritional benefits. The herbs hang in strategic locations, some near the hearth where heat and smoke help preserve them while making them easily accessible for cooking. Others farther from the fire, where more delicate varieties can dry without losing volatile aromatic compounds. Their placement represents another layer of the intricate knowledge system surrounding food preservation and use. Near the herbs hang strings of dried mushrooms, thin slices of fungi gathered from forest floors during autumn, particularly after rains. These concentrated flavor sources will be rehydrated in cooking liquids, imparting richness to winter potages and stews. The medieval peasant recognizes distinctions between dozens of mushroom varieties, knowing which can be preserved effectively and which must be avoided as dangerous. This mycological knowledge, passed through generations and often specific to local forests, represents another specialized branch of the survival wisdom surrounding winter food. In a small stone crock, sourdough starter bubbles quietly, a living heritage maintained through careful feeding. The culture of wild yeasts and bacteria is kept alive throughout winter, periodically refreshed with small amounts of precious flour. This starter represents continuity, often maintained for years or even generations within a family. Its maintenance requires understanding of temperature, feeding schedules, and subtle signs of health or decline that can only be learned through apprenticeship and observation. The morning meal preparation begins with the woman adding dried beans to already soaking barley in a clay pot. The combination will cook slowly throughout the morning, softening into a hearty pottage that provides complete protein through the complementary amino acids of legumes and grains. This nutritional synergy, unknown in scientific terms to medieval peasants, was nevertheless understood through observation and tradition. Combinations that sustained energy and health were replicated and taught. To the pot, she adds a modest amount of preserved pork fat, perhaps a tablespoon from a carefully rationed supply. This small addition transforms the meal, providing essential fatty acids and fat-soluble vitamins while significantly increasing caloric value. More importantly, it adds flavor and satisfaction to what might otherwise be bland sustenance. The fat comes from autumn pig slaughtering, an event carefully timed to coincide with the first consistent cold weather, when natural refrigeration would assist preservation efforts. Every part of the animal had been utilized, with particular attention to fat preservation. Some had been rendered and stored in sealed crocks, some used to preserve meats through confiting, some salted and stored in cool locations. The careful processing and storage of animal fat represented one of the most crucial aspects of winter food preparation. As the pottage simmers, the woman retrieves a small clay jar containing salt, one of the most precious commodities in the medieval household. Salt, often traded at considerable expense or laboriously produced in coastal operations, serves as the foundation of most preservation methods. Its value extends beyond flavor enhancement to its essential role in food safety and preservation. She adds salt with extreme care, gauging the amount through experience rather than measurement. This judicious use reflects both the value of the resource and the understanding that oversalted food can increase thirst, problematic when water sources might be frozen or difficult to access. The balance is learned through years of practice under the guidance of elder family members. From another vessel comes a splash of ale, homemade from malted barley through processes similar to modern brewing, though less standardized. The addition serves multiple purposes. The slight acidity helps break down the legumes for better digestibility. The fermented liquid adds both flavor complexity and beneficial microorganisms, and the modest alcohol content provides both preservation and a slight warming effect beneficial in winter. The cooking process itself demonstrates winter efficiency. The pottage simmers at the edge of the hearth, utilizing heat that would otherwise be wasted. This position allows for slow cooking without constant attention, freeing the woman for other necessary tasks. The arrangement of cooking vessels around. The fire represents another aspect of winter wisdom, managing the most precious resource, heat, to serve multiple functions simultaneously. While the main meal cooks, other food preparation continues. A small portion of sourdough starter is combined with rye flour and water to begin a dough that will ferment slowly throughout the day. Baking occurs only once or twice weekly in many households, an efficient use of fuel that requires careful planning and staggered preparation. Rye bread dominates winter baking for several reasons. The grain grows successfully in northern European climates, stores well, and the resulting bread stays edible longer than wheat-based loaves. Additionally, the long fermentation of sourdough rye neutralizes anti-nutritional compounds present in the grain and increases the bioavailability of nutrients. Another example of traditional practices empirically developing optimal nutritional outcomes without modern scientific understanding. Near midday, the family gathers for the first substantial meal. The pottage is served in wooden bowls, accompanied perhaps by small portions of fermented vegetables and, if supplies allow, a piece of bread from previous baking. The meal is consumed slowly, with appreciation that borders on reverence. Each spoonful represents weeks of preparation, careful storage, and measured rationing. Mealtime conversation often centers on food itself. Memories of autumn abundance, anticipation of spring harvests, appreciation of particularly successful preservation efforts. This focus is not mere daydreaming. It serves to reinforce knowledge of food cycles, preservation techniques, and seasonal patterns that will be vital for the next year's survival. After the meal, bowls are wiped clean with pieces of bread, a practice that captures every calorie while minimizing washing in cold conditions where water must be carefully managed. The food waste that does occur is minimal and purposeful. Cooking water becomes starter for the next soup. Inedible vegetable portions go to livestock or compost. Even crumbs are collected for future use in thickening soups or feeding chickens. The afternoon might bring special food preparation tasks that vary according to the winter season. In early winter, when stores are most abundant, some preservation activities continue, perhaps processing late vegetables or preparing more elaborate preserved foods. Midwinter sees careful maintenance of already preserved foods, checking fermentations, rotating stored items to use those showing first signs of decline, adjusting storage conditions as needed. Of particular importance is the monitoring of grain stores. Rodent intrusion represents a serious threat to winter survival. Regular inspection of storage containers, careful sealing of any discovered access points, and strategic placement of deterrents occupy regular attention. The medieval peasant understands that loss of grain stores can mean the difference between survival and starvation before spring. As afternoon progresses toward evening, preparations for the day's second substantial meal begin. Winter daylight is brief, and work requiring good visibility must be completed while natural light remains. Cooking, however, can continue into darkness by firelight. The evening meal preparation often begins mid-afternoon, with ingredients added to the pot, in stages, according to their cooking requirements. The evening meal typically represents the most substantial food of the day. Root vegetables, carrots, turnips, parsnips stored in cool, dark conditions or in earthen clamps might be added to the pottage. If the family is fortunate, small amounts of preserved meat enhance both flavor and nutrition. The meat might come in several forms: smoked, dried, salted, or preserved in fat. Dried fruit occasionally appears in winter meals, particularly on special occasions or religious feast days. Apples, pears, and berries dried during harvest season provide rare sweetness and important nutrients. The drying process had been carefully managed. Fruits sliced thinly, arranged on woven mats or strung on threads, placed in sun or near fires, then stored in cloth bags or sealed containers away from moisture. The rye dough, having fermented through the day, might now be formed into a simple loaf for baking. The timing coincides with the hearth being at its hottest for the evening meal. The loaf is placed in a clay vessel or directly on the hearthstone, covered perhaps with an inverted pot to create an oven-like environment. The resulting bread, dense, slightly sour, with a robust flavor, will sustain the family for several days. As daylight fades completely, the evening meal is served. The family eats by firelight, savoring the most diverse meal of the day. This is also the time when special food items might be introduced, particularly on religious feast days or to mark significant events. These special foods, carefully preserved from harvest or traded for at significant cost, provide not just physical nourishment, but psychological and social sustenance through the connection to celebration and community. After the evening meal, any remaining food is carefully stored. Leftover pottage remains near the banked fire, where it will stay warm enough to prevent freezing, but cool enough to discourage spoilage. Tomorrow, it will form the base of the next day's cooking, with fresh ingredients added to replenish what was consumed. Food preservation continues even within daily consumption patterns. Nothing is wasted. Everything is incorporated into ongoing nourishment. This approach, using each day's remainder as the foundation for the next day's sustenance, creates both practical efficiency and a powerful metaphor for continuity through the winter months. Special mention should be made of winter beverages. Water, often collected from melted snow or ice during deep winter when wells or streams might be frozen, serves basic hydration needs. However, other beverages play crucial roles in winter nourishment and well-being. Ale, brewed in autumn from malted grains and carefully stored, provides significant calories, beneficial B vitamins, and mild preservation properties due to its alcohol content. Unlike modern beer, medieval ale was often lower in alcohol, but higher in suspended nutrients and calories, functioning more as liquid bread than recreational beverage. Its slightly alcoholic nature ensured microbial safety when water sources might be questionable. Various herbal infusions serve both medicinal and comfort purposes throughout winter. Dried mint, chamomile, linden flowers, and numerous locally gathered plants steep in hot water to create warming drinks with specific health benefits understood through generations of observation. These tisanes address common winter ailments, respiratory congestion, digestive difficulties, minor pain, while providing hydration and comfort. For the fortunate, mead might be available for special occasions. Honey fermented into a sweet, alcoholic beverage that represents significant resource investment, as honey was precious and often used for medicinal purposes rather than fermentation. Its appearance at winter gatherings marked truly special circumstances. The medieval approach to winter nutrition contains sophisticated understanding of human needs during cold weather. The diet shifts toward higher caloric density compared to summer eating, incorporating more fats and complex carbohydrates that provide sustained energy. Cooking methods favor long, slow techniques that both conserve fuel and render maximum nutrition from available ingredients. Protein sources become particularly strategic during winter, with fresh meat largely unavailable except through occasional hunting. itself dependent on local regulations under feudal systems. Preserved animal proteins are carefully rationed and supplemented with legumes, grains, nuts and seeds in combinations that provide complementary amino acids. Particularly noteworthy is the medieval approach to preventing nutritional deficiencies during the season when fresh foods are unavailable. Fermented vegetables provide vitamin C, preventing scurvy. Occasional organ meats, carefully preserved, contribute vital minerals and fat-soluble vitamins. Sprouted grains, sometimes cultivated indoors during winter, provide fresh nutrients even when fields lie dormant under snow. There exists also a carefully maintained knowledge of wild foods available even in winter. Certain tree barks contain edible inner layers. Some roots remain viable under frozen ground. A few hardy greens can be found in sheltered areas. These emergency foods are gathered opportunistically when conditions allow, supplementing stored provisions and providing psychological reassurance of nature's continued bounty, even in the barren season. The winter diet operates within the framework of the Christian liturgical calendar, with its pattern of feasts and fasts that originally aligned with agricultural cycles. Fasting periods, particularly Advent and Lent, coincide with times when food stores would naturally be at their lowest. The religious obligation to abstain from certain foods during these periods creates a cultural framework that helps normalize the reduced consumption necessary when supplies dwindle. Feast days, by contrast, provide occasions for carefully planned indulgence, strategic deployment of special preserved foods that boost both nutrition and morale during the most challenging season, the Christmas season, winter solstice, and early spring celebrations. Feature dishes prepared from ingredients specifically set aside during autumn abundance for these occasions. Particularly fascinating is the medieval understanding of the relationship between food and health during winter. Certain combinations are recognized as especially beneficial for cold weather. Warming spices like ginger and cinnamon, herbs with circulation-enhancing properties, foods considered to contribute to inner heat, according to humoral medicine concepts. The woman stirring the evening pottage adds a pinch of dried sage, understood to be warming and good for digestion. She might add wild mushrooms gathered in autumn, known empirically to support overall vigor. Garlic, treasured for both flavor and health properties, appears frequently in winter cooking, its antimicrobial properties unknowingly helping to ward off infections during the season when people are most confined in close quarters. As winter progresses, subtle changes occur in daily food patterns. Early winter features more variety and slightly larger portions. Midwinter sees the most careful rationing, with meals becoming simpler but still adequate. Late winter often becomes the most challenging period. Stores dwindling, nutritional deficiencies beginning to emerge, the need for careful management at its most acute. This late winter period, sometimes called the hungry gap or starving time, is approached with particularly careful strategy. The most calorie-dense foods are rationed to last through this critical period. Community support intensifies, with sharing among households becoming more common. Knowledge of emergency wild foods becomes most valuable, with any early spring growth eagerly sought and incorporated into meals. In the depths of winter, food serves purposes far beyond mere sustenance. The act of meal preparation and consumption provides structure to days otherwise defined by darkness and cold. The rituals surrounding food, from morning porridge to evening bread baking, create rhythms that sustain psychological well-being and community cohesion. The sharing of food, even in times of scarcity, reinforces social bonds essential to collective survival. A household with surplus preserves might share with one whose storage was compromised. Knowledge of particularly successful preservation techniques is exchanged between families. Seeds saved from particularly hardy or productive plants are discussed and sometimes traded in winter conversations that lay groundwork for spring planting. Evening meals often extend into storytelling sessions where food-related wisdom is transmitted between generations. Tales of past winters, both of scarcity and abundance, contain embedded lessons about preparation, preservation, and management. Children absorb crucial knowledge through these narratives, learning to recognize signs of proper fermentation, understand storage principles, and gauge appropriate rationing. The winter kitchen becomes a classroom where observation, participation, and guided practice transmit the complex knowledge system required for seasonal survival. Young members of the household progress from simple tasks to more complex responsibilities as they demonstrate readiness, accumulating practical skills inseparable from cultural understanding. In this way, winter food practices represent not merely techniques but a comprehensive knowledge ecosystem, simultaneously practical, social, spiritual, and educational. The methods of preservation, preparation, and consumption contain within them the collective wisdom of countless generations who observed, adapted, and refined approaches to sustaining life through the challenging northern European winter. As days begin slowly lengthening after winter solstice, subtle shifts occur in food practices. Stored supplies are assessed with increasing attention to making them last through the remaining cold months. Germination tests might be performed on saved seeds to ensure their viability for spring planting. The first preparations for the eventual growing season begin even while winter maintains its grip. In late winter, weather permitting, special attention turns to foraging for the first wild greens, chickweed, nettles, dandelion leaves, that emerge before cultivated crops can be planted. These first fresh greens are treasured additions to the winter diet, providing vital nutrients after months of preserved foods. Their appearance marks a crucial psychological turning point, tangible evidence that the cycle of growth has begun. Again, the knowledge surrounding these early spring foods is detailed and specific. Understanding precisely where to look for the first growth, how to distinguish edible young plants from similar-looking toxic ones, when to harvest for maximum nutrition without damaging regrowth. These represent another specialized branch of the medieval food knowledge system. Eventually, stored winter provisions merge with early spring harvests in a careful transition that bridges the hungry gap before cultivation begins producing significant yield. This transition period has its own cuisine, combinations of the last preserved foods with the first fresh ingredients, creating meals that symbolize both the endurance of winter and the renewal of spring. When the last of the winter stores are consumed, ideally just as fresh foods become sufficiently available, there is often a simple ceremony of gratitude, acknowledgement of successful preservation, careful management, and community support that allowed survival through another winter. Special attention is paid to which methods proved most successful, which foods maintained highest quality, which storage locations performed best, all information to be applied to the next autumn's preparation cycle. Thus, the medieval approach to winter food embodies a sophisticated system of knowledge, practice, and adaptation that extends far beyond simple recipes or techniques. It represents a holistic understanding of human needs, nutritional, psychological, and social, during the challenging winter season, and the development of integrated strategies to meet those needs with limited resources. In The Woman Measuring Dried Beans on a Winter Morning, we see not merely a cook, but a practitioner of an intricate science developed through centuries of observation and refinement. A science of survival expressed through the daily acts of nourishing a family through the harshest season. As we leave, behind the nourishing practices of the medieval winter kitchen, our journey carries us toward the heart and soul of cold weather survival. The cultural practices, stories, and community bonds that warmed spirits when the world outside lay frozen and still. The winter evening deepens around a medieval village as darkness claims the landscape hours before true night will arrive. Inside a humble dwelling, a family gathers in the soft glow of firelight. The day's essential tasks are complete. Animals tended, water collected, food prepared and consumed, the dwelling secured against the coming night's cold. Now begins what many consider the true heart of winter, the time of stories, crafts, and the quiet reinforcement of bonds that sustain community through the harshest season. An elderly man clears his throat, drawing the attention of children settled on rush mats near the hearth. His face, illuminated by the dancing flames, bears the imprint of decades lived in harmony with nature's cycles. When he speaks, his voice carries the measured cadence of one who understands the power of words to transmit not merely entertainment, but essential wisdom. When I was no taller than this young one, he begins, gesturing to the smallest child, there came a winter so fierce that the old oak at the crossroads split from cold. The children's eyes widen. They know this ancient tree, a landmark that has oriented travelers and villagers for generations. Thus begins an evening ritual, repeated in countless variations across medieval Europe during the winter months. Storytelling in medieval winter serves functions far beyond mere pastime. It is simultaneously education, cultural transmission, spiritual instruction, psychological support, and community cohesion, all wrapped in narratives that captivate even as they teach. The winter tale the elder shares contains practical knowledge embedded within its narrative. As he describes how his family survived that legendary cold snap, he includes details about which foods provided the most sustaining warmth, how snow was melted most efficiently for water, which sections of the forest offered the most windfall wood during ice storms. The children absorb these lessons within the engaging framework of story, learning survival techniques that might one day prove essential. While the elder speaks, hands remain busy. A woman works wool with practiced movements, drawing the carded fibers into thread using a simple drop spindle. The thin strand grows longer with each twist and pull, a tangible manifestation of creation during fallow months. Another family member whittles a piece of wood into a simple implement, perhaps a spoon or needle, the curled shavings catching occasional glints of firelight as they fall to the earthen floor. This winter productivity represents another essential aspect of medieval winter culture. The enforced confinement of cold months transforms into opportunity for creation. Items that cannot be manufactured during the intense agricultural seasons are now produced in abundance. Textiles, tools, household items, and even art. The medieval winter dwelling becomes a workshop where practical needs meet creative expression. The spindle continues its rhythmic dance, creating thread that will eventually become cloth. The process involves multiple stages: carding the cleaned wool to align fibers, spinning it into thread, plying multiple threads together for strength, weaving the resulting yarn on looms that occupy precious indoor space only during winter. Each stage requires specific skills transmitted through demonstration, practice, and guided correction. Children participate according to their abilities. Younger ones may card wool using simple wooden paddles with wire teeth, while older children might practice basic spinning or help with warping the loom. The winter workshop functions as a classroom where essential skills transfer naturally between generations. There are no formal lessons, only the organic transmission of knowledge through participation in necessary work. The elder's tale concludes with a subtle moral lesson about the importance of community sharing during hardship. The children nod seriously, absorbing both the explicit message and numerous implicit teachings embedded within the narrative. One child immediately begins a question about another legendary winter, but is gently reminded that each person will have their turn to share or request a story. This small interaction itself teaches important community values: patience, taking turns, respecting collective time. As the evening continues, different types of stories emerge. Some are purely instructive, detailed explanations of natural phenomena based on medieval understanding of the world. Others draw from religious traditions, reinforcing moral frameworks and spiritual concepts central to medieval worldviews. Still others preserve local history, maintaining awareness of events that shape the community's identity across generations. Particularly beloved are tales that explain the origin of winter itself. These often blend Christian theology with older folk traditions, stories of saints whose actions affect weather patterns, or narratives that personify winter as a character with particular motivations and behaviors. These explanatory tales help create meaning around the challenging season, transforming it from mere hardship to a comprehensible phase in cosmic order. A young mother takes her turn sharing a story familiar to all present, the tale of Saint Nicholas, whose feast day approaches. While modern listeners might recognize elements that would eventually evolve into Christmas traditions, the medieval version emphasizes different aspects: the saint's generosity toward the poor, his protection of children, his miraculous preservation of communities during famine. The timing of this saint's celebration, early December, is not coincidental. It arrives at the threshold of winter's deepest period, providing spiritual and community reinforcement just as the physical challenges intensify. The feast represents one of many calendar observances that create structure and meaning during winter's long duration. These observances, some Christian, some drawing from older traditions, form a rhythm that carries communities through winter's psychological challenges. The winter solstice, Christmas, Candlemas, various saints' days, each provides occasion for special foods, communal gatherings, ritual observances that break the potential monotony of winter confinement and darkness. As the story concludes, someone produces a simple musical instrument, perhaps a wooden flute or small drum. Music joins storytelling as essential winter sustenance. Songs mark seasonal transitions, preserve historical knowledge, reinforce community identity, and simply provide the emotional nourishment of beauty during visually sparse months. The musical traditions vary by region and culture, but common elements emerge across medieval Europe. Work songs establish rhythm for winter tasks like spinning or weaving. Narrative ballads preserve histories similar to spoken tales, but in memorable, melodic form. Religious songs connect communities to spiritual traditions and cosmic meanings. Dance tunes, even in confined winter quarters, allow for physical expression and the joy of movement. Children learn these songs through repeated exposure and encourage participation. No formal music education exists for peasant communities, yet sophisticated musical knowledge transfers generation to generation. Young listeners absorb complex rhythms, regional melodic styles, and the subtle art of embellishment through immersion and guided practice. The family's musical interlude might last only a few songs before practical concerns resurface. The fire needs tending. The evening meal requires final preparation. Water vessels need refilling from carefully melted snow. Yet even these practical interruptions carry cultural significance. The rhythms of necessity themselves form part of winter's unique patterns. After essential tasks receive attention, the focus shifts to games, another crucial component of winter culture. Medieval game playing serves multiple purposes beyond entertainment. Strategic games like chess in more affluent households, or simpler variants among peasants, develop critical thinking and planning skills. Dexterity games maintain fine motor skills during months of reduced physical activity. Memory games preserve cognitive sharpness and transmit cultural content. Many games require no equipment beyond what can be fashioned from readily available materials: pebbles, sticks, bits of bone or wood. Others utilize boards scratched into wooden surfaces and reused year after year. The simplicity of materials contrasts with often complex rule systems transmitted orally and refined through generations of play. Children's winter games often contain educational elements disguised as entertainment: counting games that develop numeracy, verbal games that enhance language facility, physical challenges that maintain strength and coordination despite indoor confinement. Through play, essential skills continue developing even when formal agricultural apprenticeship pauses. As darkness settles completely outside, conversation turns to community matters. Winter, despite its challenges, creates opportunity for extended discussion, planning, and conflict resolution that the busy growing season cannot accommodate. The family discusses matters requiring attention: a boundary dispute with neighboring land users, arrangements for an upcoming marriage between village families, concerns about a community member showing signs of illness. These winter conversations form a crucial governance function in medieval communities. Without formal political structures at the village level, the consensus building of winter evenings, repeated across households and eventually brought to broader community gatherings, creates the shared understanding necessary for collective action and problem solving. Preparation for significant community rituals also occupies winter evenings. The next day might bring St. Lucy's celebration, traditionally occurring near winter solstice. Family members discuss their roles, who will participate in the procession, what small gifts might be prepared, which foods should be contributed to communal feasting. The anticipation itself provides psychological sustenance, creating forward momentum through winter's darkness. The medieval calendar interweaves Christian observances with agricultural necessities and older seasonal traditions. Winter particularly abounds with feasts and rituals that serve to measure time's passage and maintain communal bonds. While summer festivals often occur in public spaces, winter observances necessarily focus more on household or indoor village gatherings, intimate by circumstance rather than design. The 12 days of Christmas exemplify this pattern of winter community reinforcement. This period, extending from Christmas Day through Epiphany, transforms a potentially desolate midwinter period into a sequence of meaningful observances. Different days honor various saints or commemorate specific aspects of nativity narratives. Some feature role reversals, the Feast of Fools allowing brief, sanctioned overturning of normal hierarchies that provides psychological release during confined months. As evening deepens, the family's activities gradually quiet. Younger children grow sleepy by the fire. The elder reaches for materials to engage in one of winter's most meditative crafts: basket weaving. Using reeds harvested and dried months earlier, his gnarled fingers work with surprising dexterity, weaving patterns learned in his own childhood and refined through decades of practice. This particular craft embodies the deep connection between practical necessity and artistic expression in medieval winter culture. The resulting baskets will serve essential functions: storing foods, carrying items, separating materials, but their creation incorporates aesthetic choices, reflecting both regional traditions and personal creativity. The careful placement of differently colored reeds creates subtle patterns. The choice of weaving techniques affects both function and beauty. Many winter crafts share this dual nature. Carved wooden items incorporate decorative elements beyond pure function. Textiles feature patterns or embellishments expressing cultural identity and aesthetic values. Even humble objects receive decorative attention during winter's extended crafting time, a recognition that beauty itself nourishes the human spirit during sparse months. The elder speaks softly while working, now sharing not a formal story, but memories of winters past. These casual recollections contain their own form of knowledge transmission, observations about weather patterns, reflections on community resilience during particularly difficult years, remembrances of innovations that improved winter survival. The younger adults listen attentively, mentally cataloguing information that may prove valuable in their own future challenges. Particularly noteworthy is the elders' emphasis on weather lore, the accumulated observational wisdom that helped medieval communities anticipate and prepare for weather changes despite lacking modern meteorological tools. The appearance of certain cloud formations, the behavior of animals, the particular quality of morning frost, all these serve as indicators interpreted through generations of careful observation and pattern recognition. This weather knowledge has direct survival implications. Recognizing signs of impending storms allows for securing animals and structures before conditions worsen. Identifying patterns that presage thaws helps prevent damage from melting and refreezing. Understanding which cold conditions might damage stored food enables protective measures. Weather lore represents another sophisticated knowledge system, preserved through winter's oral traditions. As the evening concludes, family members begin preparing for sleep. The fire is carefully banked to maintain some heat through the night, while conserving precious fuel. Sleeping arrangements are adjusted based on the night's anticipated temperature, perhaps moving pallets closer to the hearth or arranging sleeping positions to maximize shared warmth. Before final settling, a simple religious observance might occur. Prayers offered for protection through the night, expressions of gratitude for the day's sufficiency, requests for continued safety through winter's duration. These spiritual practices, whether formal Christian prayers or more syncretic observances, blending multiple traditions, provide psychological comfort and reinforce cosmic meaning during challenging months. The rhythm of winter evenings repeats with variations across the season. Some nights feature more extensive storytelling. Others focus on particular crafts, requiring good light from a built-up fire. Community gatherings periodically replace family-centered evenings, bringing together multiple households for shared meals, broader conversations, and communal work projects. These larger gatherings serve crucial functions beyond immediate practicality. They reinforce village cohesion, allow for efficient sharing of information, create opportunities to resolve emerging conflicts, and provide the social stimulation necessary for psychological well-being during confined months. The medieval understanding of human needs recognized that community connection itself constituted a survival requirement no less essential than food or shelter. Winter gatherings often occur in the largest available dwelling or a community building if one exists. The host household gains prestige through its hospitality, while benefiting from the collective body heat of many visitors, an elegant balance of social status and practical advantage. Guests typically contribute food or fuel, ensuring no single Family bears excessive burden for communal benefit. These gatherings feature specialized forms of knowledge sharing. Men might discuss woodland management strategies, which trees can be harvested without damaging future growth, how to identify the best wood for particular purposes, techniques for managing coppiced areas in spring. Women exchange information about preservation methods that proved most successful, remedies for common winter ailments, techniques for extending scarce resources. Young adults experience these gatherings as crucial socialization opportunities. Winter traditionally sees the highest rate of courtship arrangements as agricultural demands ease and families can focus on future planning. Carefully chaperoned interactions during community gatherings allow young people to demonstrate skills, assess compatibility, and begin the social processes that will eventually lead to marriage, typically scheduled after the following harvest. Some elderly hold particularly valued roles during winter gatherings. Their extensive experience with past winters provides perspective during current challenges. Their accumulated knowledge of crafts, weather patterns, and emergency measures represents an irreplaceable community resource. Their stories preserve historical knowledge while entertaining across age groups. Winter culture particularly highlights the value of elders as knowledge keepers and wisdom sources. Certain winter gatherings center around specific productive activities that benefit from collective labor. Communal woolworking brings together multiple households to process fleece more efficiently than individual families could manage alone. Woodworking projects requiring specialized skills draw on the community's collective expertise. Preservation. Activities involving scarce resources, like rendering fat or smoking meat, might utilize shared equipment and multiple helpers. These collective work sessions, often called bees in later periods, combine productivity with socialization in ways particularly suited to winter conditions. The shared warmth of many bodies makes workspaces more comfortable. The division of labor allows for more efficient use of daylight hours. The social interaction combats the isolation that might otherwise affect households confined by weather and darkness. Special attention focuses on education during winter months. With agricultural work suspended, time becomes available for more deliberate transmission of knowledge to younger generations. This takes place not in formal settings, but through intentional inclusion in adult activities. Children move from observation to peripheral participation, to gradually increasing responsibility under careful guidance. Religious education intensifies during winter evenings. Bible stories, transmitted orally in communities where literacy is rare, receive extended attention. Saints' lives provide moral examples and practical inspiration. Theological concepts appropriate to children's understanding are explained through narrative and discussion. This religious foundation serves both spiritual and community cohesion purposes, creating shared values and interpretive frameworks. Winter also sees the preservation and transmission of medical knowledge. Remedies using stored herbs and materials are prepared, while their creation can be carefully demonstrated. The identification, preparation, and application of healing substances forms another specialized knowledge system maintained through winter's teaching opportunities. Children learn to recognize which plants treat specific ailments, how preparation methods affect medicinal properties, and appropriate dosages for different conditions. Throughout winter's cultural practices runs a consistent theme of balance between necessity and beauty, between individual and community needs, between preservation of tradition and adaptation to immediate circumstances. This balance reflects the medieval peasant's sophisticated understanding that winter survival required attention to physical, psychological, social, and spiritual dimensions of human experience. As winter progresses through its phases, Cultural practices shift in response. Early winter features preparation activities alongside celebration of successful harvest. Deep winter focuses on conservation, careful management of resources, and maintenance of morale through collective activities. Late winter begins incorporating preparatory actions for spring, alongside rituals marking winter's gradual recession. Candlemas, February 2nd, marks a particularly important transition in the medieval winter calendar, falling midway between winter solstice and spring equinox. This feast celebrates the gradual return of light while acknowledging winter's continued presence. Candles blessed during religious services symbolize hope and illuminate increasingly longer evenings. The day features divination practices regarding winter's remaining duration, ancestors of modern groundhog traditions. Following Candlemas, subtle shifts occur in winter evening activities. Discussions increasingly focus on spring preparations, decisions about which fields will receive priority planting, assessment of seed stocks, planning for livestock births. Craft work begins, including items needed for agricultural season, repair of handles for tools, creation of containers for carrying seed, mending of harnesses and other equipment. Stories and songs gradually shift in theme as well, incorporating more references to renewal, growth, and the approaching growing season. Traditional tales that mark winter's withdrawal begin appearing in evening storytelling. These narrative transitions serve both practical and psychological purposes, preparing community members mentally for the approaching shift in activities, while maintaining the teaching function of winter evenings. As winter begins yielding to early spring, communal activities often move partially outdoors during daylight hours. The first collective endeavors might include clearing drainage channels to manage snowmelt, assessing winter damage to community structures, or gathering the earliest wild foods from sheltered areas. These activities maintain the social bonds strengthened during winter evenings, while gradually transitioning toward the more independent work patterns of growing seasons. Yet, even as preparation for spring intensifies, winter evenings retain their essential character until truly warm weather arrives. The fire remains center of household life. Stories continue transmitting essential knowledge. Hands remain busy with productive crafts. The winter culture created through these months has strengthened community bonds that will sustain cooperative work through the coming agricultural seasons. When true spring finally arrives, marked by religious observances like Easter, alongside natural signs like specific bird migrations or plant emergences, many medieval communities hold celebrations that specifically acknowledge winter's passage. These observances frequently include Thanksgiving for survival, recognition of community members who provided particular support during challenging months, and rituals symbolizing the transition from interior to exterior focus. The specific forms of these end-of-winter observances vary widely across regions and periods, reflecting local traditions and particular winter challenges. Some feature the ceremonial extinguishing of the continuous winter hearth fire and lighting of a new fire outdoors. Others involve processions that physically move from indoor gathering spaces to fields or community greens. Many include the first shared outdoor meal of the season, a communion that concretely marks the transition from winter's confinement to spring's expansion. What remains consistent across these diverse practices is the recognition that winter itself has formed a distinct season of human experience, not merely a period of hardship, but a necessary phase in the cycle of community life. The cultural practices developed for winter survival extend beyond mere practicality to create meaning, beauty, and social cohesion during challenging conditions. As planting begins and growing season activities intensify, the particular intimacy of winter evenings transforms into different patterns of community interaction. Households focus more on their specific agricultural responsibilities. Evening gatherings become less frequent. Daylight extends work hours while shortening time for stories and crafts. Yet the knowledge shared, bonds strengthened, and traditions maintained during winter continue influencing community life through all seasons. The medieval approach to winter culture demonstrates sophisticated understanding of human needs beyond mere physical survival. Through deliberate practices nurturing intellectual, creative, social, and spiritual dimensions, communities transformed winter from a season of mere endurance to one of interior richness. In the careful balance between conservation and creation, between tradition and innovation, between individual and collective needs, medieval winter culture achieved a sustainable approach to the challenging season, one that not only preserved life, but affirmed its meaning through the darkest and coldest months. Thank you for spending this quiet time with us, drifting through forgotten echoes of history. If this story brought you peace, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs rest. We'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Until next time, sleep well, dream softly, and good night.